The Promised Neverland has become a breakout hit in the manga world. It's one of my favorite recent series, and I've been following it for the past 2 years, and next year it's finally getting an anime adaptation, which if it's good will help propel it to even greater heights. As someone who's championed the series ever since I first laid eyes on the pilot chapter, I feel especially validated seeing it reach this point, especially since the first 37 chapters and the first major story arc is easily one of the best self-contained stories I've seen come out of the world of manga in a long, long time. So this should be an automatic hole-in-one, a series that is finally ready to hit the big time and enter a much wider realm of cultural consciousness and appreciation. But there's one big thing that could be holding it back. One thing that I can already see igniting a firestorm of controversy and launching a million think pieces, and that is the depiction of a certain character, a certain Sister Krone. You gotta love to be God back it. So for all of you people who aren't familiar with the Promised Neverland, let me give you the setup, and be warned, spoilers incoming if you care. So the Promised Neverland takes place at an idyllic orphanage where we see Emma and her two friends, Ray and Norman, growing up to be happy, healthy, and strong, along with their family of adopted siblings as they await their potential adoption by new families and help out their fellow adopted siblings play and live happy lives. But we later learn that things are not what they appear, that this orphanage is actually a farm where demon-like monstrous creatures are raising these kids to be butchered and sold as meat for the rich, high-paying demons that enjoy their child veal medium rare. And so, with no chakra, devil fruit, spirit energy, nen, superpowers, or quirks, with only their plucky genius-level IQs, Emma and her friends must figure out a way to escape before their time comes up and they're shipped out to be butchered and put into glass containers and eaten by monsters. What follows is a tense game of cat and mouse as their supposed guardian, Isabella, becomes aware that the jig is up and the cattle children are looking to blow their metaphorical chicken coop. In order to tighten security, she calls in for help from headquarters and receives the aid of Sister Krone, a muscular black woman with brutish strength to help maintain order over the children she's charged with raising and supervising. Now, Sister Krone's depiction is a bit, how should I say it, problematic. She's not written in any way that's offensive. In fact, I think she has one of the best tragic arcs in the series, but how she's drawn as a brutish, inhuman monster is a little less than kosher. Now, why would that be offensive? What point from history could you potentially draw upon that would make this problematic? I don't think I could find an example of why this might be something that people would take an issue with. So yeah, the idea of a black woman, or hell, black people in general, being depicted as brutish, inhuman monsters has a long and soiled history in America. But that's where things get interesting. This is a Japanese manga that's primarily written for a Japanese audience. Now, in our current digital culture where everything is globally interconnected and media that was originally made for a specific audience can be consumed by people all across the globe, that standard is a bit different. But something that is made for one audience can't be expected to account for the cultural sensitivities of another. Japan is pretty much a monolithic ethno-state with next to no diversity, where 98.5% of the population is of course Japanese, 0.5% of it is Korean, and 0.4% is Chinese, and only 0.6% of the population fits into the other categories of racial identities. So it's pretty easy to guess that there aren't many, if any, black people in the hallowed halls of Shonen Jump to advise the editorial department on the more racially sensitive depictions of non-Japanese characters. So Japanese comics and anime and movies are primarily made for a Japanese audience. Hell, it's amazing that there's any diversity in anime and manga at all, given that there's literally no financial incentive to cater towards it unless you want to pander towards a larger global audience. Although something that has become a bit more common in the video game world is that big studios like Capcom have been tailoring their major franchises like Resident Evil to appeal to a broader Western audience, and have even gone as far as creating new franchises in the hopes of appealing towards Western audiences, like the now dead Lost Planet series. Which is why we get less savory, racially charged, and less culturally sensitive depictions of different races in the world of anime and manga, like the infamous Mr. Popo from Dragon Ball, or the Pokemon Jinx, who have been accused of being racist caricatures designed to imitate the older American tradition of minstrel blackface. It doesn't help that Jinx has Pokedex entries that read like this one.
It cries sound like human speech. However, it is impossible to tell what it is trying to say.
These are just a few examples, but if you want to keep digging, the racially insensitive well is pretty deep.
うちらガングル部とか言ってっけど、ガングルギャルじゃなくね？行き過ぎでしょ。クロチカル
オバマの言葉忘れたの？チェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェンジチェン Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Please! Wow! Who are you? Who? Who are you? Oh, American. American. Shut up! No!
Oh man, Japan, not really doing yourself any favors. In international releases, edits were made towards the skin tone as well as the lips of Mr. Popo and Jinx, but this raises an interesting question. Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z became international phenomena by chance, but they were originally created as products that were designed to appeal towards a strictly Japanese sensibility. Should these creators feel obligated to cater towards people who represent less than 0.6% of their audience? The general answer is no, at least from the Japanese perspective. That can be seen by the fact that Japanese people did not seem to care about the whitewashing controversy behind Ghost in the Shell from about a year ago when Scarlett Johansson took on the role of Major Motoko Kusanagi in the big-budget Hollywood adaptation of the beloved anime and manga Ghost in the Shell. To them, it was just novel enough to see their beloved property get the big-budget Hollywood treatment.
綺麗。
いいんじゃないですか。
でも日本人がやるよりいいんじゃんって思うけどな。なあ。なんかアニメやからな、そんななんかな。目の色とか。確かに。ちょっと日本人離れした方がぽいやんな。ぽい。アニメ的には。
僕原作1話しか見てないんで、まあでも結構似てるし全然はい悪くはないんちゃうんですかね。
綺麗ですよね。綺麗。
And they didn't seem to mind a localized adaptation of the iconic series, despite other people deeming it as whitewashing. But it was a very big controversy for Asian Americans, who are generally not particularly well represented in big-budget Hollywood movies, and saw it as an opportunity to allow someone the chance to ascend to that bigger world of cultural relevancy. But instead, that opportunity was given to Scarlett Johansson, whose career is gifted with just about every advantage you could ever think of for a gorgeous white woman. But on the flip side, it's not uncommon for big American studios to gain the rights to adapt a movie or film from another country and localize it or reinterpret it for a Western audience. Such examples include The Departed, which is based on the Hong Kong movie Infernal Affairs, Old Boy, The Ring, Let Me In, which is a remake of the Swedish movie Let the Right One In, where the characters and locations were changed to better appeal towards a Western audience. And of course, the shitty Netflix Death Note movie also counts as well. But we are not here to break that whole Ghost in the Shell controversy down. It's just an example of how in our new global transcontinental culture where ideas can flow freely, what can be considered to be harmless to one culture can be seen as incredibly offensive or controversial to another. Which brings us back to Sister Krone. In the manga, she's drawn as this freakishly huge demonic monster with huge lips, which can be seen as indicative of an offensive racial stereotypes. Her role is to serve as a fearsome physical obstacle that the children must overcome, and places her in a, well, how should we put it, a bit of a problematic position. The idea of an evil Aunt Jemima from hell terrorizing a group of little white kids is not a particularly racially sensitive one. Not to mention her appearance and dress give her more than a passing resemblance to the classic mammy archetype, which is now considered to be a racist stereotype that is seen throughout the antebellum South, as well as in media depicting that period, such as the classic influential films like Gone with the Wind. And the fact that she is such a physically imposing presence and treated as such a monstrous antagonist towards the little white kids goes a long way towards reinforcing a lot of very harmful stereotypes that have a long and very uncomfortable history in America. But despite her less than culturally sensitive appearance, in the actual text of the Promised Neverland, Krone is a much more complex and nuanced character. She serves the dual role of a rival as well as an ally towards Emma, Ray, and Norman. Sister Krone is brought in as an assistant to Isabella by the mysterious head of the plantation of the human meat farm of Grace Fields. Krone wants to overthrow Isabella, the current head caretaker, so she can be the new mama and oversee the Grace Fields plantation. At this early point in the series, we know next to nothing about the outside world. All we know is that in this world, humans have only two purposes. They can either be raised as food until they're shipped off to be eaten by demons, or they can become part of the system where they are responsible for the subjugation and literal body harvest of their fellow man. They can be breeders to produce more humans, or they can become the ranchers that raise the cattle children until they become ripe enough to be shipped out and processed. Sister Krone is ultimately a victim of this cruel system that is built to work against her, where for her to even have the right to grow into adulthood, she is always forced to compete against other potential caretakers in training. Seeing her only way for survival is to be on the other side of the food chain, to become a predator. So thus she was forced to partake in a cruel system that was always designed to screw her over, fighting an uphill battle she could never win until she met her ultimate fate in easily one of the cruelest twists of the series. After she gathers enough evidence to prove that Emma, Norman, and Ray are plotting an escape, along with all the other children of Grace Fields, she reports to her superior, but her superior, the grandma of the plantation, tells her that she never had a chance of winning, that everything she'd done doesn't matter. That Isabella's skill in raising tasty children would always be superior to her abilities, that no matter how much or how hard she competed or tried to succeed in her human rat race, that she was always destined to fail. And thus she is killed and harvested by the powers that be. She becomes a tragic figure, but despite her ultimate sacrifice, despite her work and effort being laughed and disregarded by the powers that be, it's Sister Krone who gets the last laugh. Before her final confrontation, she leaves Emma and her friends with a mysterious William Minerva pen, which becomes instrumental in helping them orchestrate their escape, as well as helping them survive in the wild world outside of Grace Fields. She hopes that these children, who served as both ally and enemy, can do what she was never given the opportunity to destroy the cruel, unjust world they live in, and tear down the system whose only purpose is to churn out a never-ending stream of free-range children. Children meant to be fed into the maws of voracious, uncaring demons, whose insatiable appetite for human flesh has orchestrated this cruel fallacy of farms masquerading as orphanages. Sister Krone wanted to live long enough to see herself become the villain, but because she knew in her heart of hearts that the game was always rigged against her, she fought back her more selfish impulses and died a hero. That's what makes her such a beautiful, tragic figure and the best bittersweet storyline from the Promised Neverland. And while I don't think it's intentional, I do think that series writer Kaio Shirai has created a character that non-white women of color will find very relatable in terms of being someone looking to succeed and survive, who is always being held back by either a racial or patriarchal hierarchy that is designed to work against them no matter how hard they try or how much they succeed, and the fact that Sister Krone gets to play an instrumental role in helping to torch the entire system to the ground helps make her final arc have a bittersweet sense of victory and accomplishment in death that she was sadly never able to enjoy in life. I hope the Promised Neverland anime is good. It really, really deserves a great adaptation. And while I'll be honest, looking at the animation studio's past work does not fill me with a great amount of confidence. I certainly hope the strong source material will allow it to rise above a potentially middling studio adaptation. But if they can adjust Sister Krone's character design to look less like the mammy from hell and more like the physically imposing powerhouse she's supposed to be, then I think Sister Krone could be a character for the ages, much like how the Philadelphia Flyers mascot Gritty has been embraced by the left to become the Marxist anti-capitalist meme of the people. I certainly hope Sister Krone can rise above to become a greater symbol of revolution, because her ultimate fate is to light the spark that seeks to burn everything down in a corrupt, cruel system fueled by the economy of flesh and bone, ground up by the innocent who have little control or choice in their larger fates and destinies. I think that's something many people could probably relate to, especially in the 2018-2019 era. And now, some thoughts from the Pixel Hipster, the kind gentleman who has volunteered to edit this video, on the subject of race and transcontinental culture, given his mixed background of being half white and half Japanese, and also living in Australia. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey, thank you for that intro, Lobster. Hey everyone, I'm Pixel Hipster. If I'm half Japanese, half white, and Australian, if you couldn't tell already. Here's a photo of me if you don't believe me. There you go, that's me. Bop. Yep, done. I'm going to quickly address these 2 points separately. I'll start off with whitewashing in Hollywood and then move on to Sister Krone. For me personally, I disapprove of whitewashing and the reverse. I hate it when a character is changed racially. We're all humans and should be treated as such. I feel putting people into groups and labels is getting us nowhere. For me personally, I just want to see people in cinema who look like me, and for no one to make a big deal about it. Just treat it normally. I feel like that's the best way to go about this situation. I know it sucks currently, and there's nothing really anything we can do about it. But it will inevitably get better. We're already seeing a couple of changes. We got people like Ross Butler and Henry Golding, and I feel like this is a gradual process that is going to change within the next 20 to 30 years. As for the Sister Krone thing, I hope people don't get offended by that. Japan is just a monolithic ethno-state, and people have really weird misconceptions around black people. That wasn't an act of malice, of course not. Even being biracial myself, I get viewed and treated a lot differently, even though I'm like pretty much Japanese. So I hope no one takes that as a personal attack upon them. It's just how they would perceive a black female as, and it's because of these misconceptions that's how people think the black women act. I know it's a lot easier just to demonize and call something, hate something on its own merit, but it's a lot harder to understand why these things occur. It's just stems from ignorance and not actual malice. So I hope people realize that and come to terms with the fact that she is actually pretty cool character, and yeah. Anyway, that's my quick take on it. Originally this was going to be a lot longer and I was going to go into like facts and statistics and whatever, but I had to cut it down due to exporting. Please go subscribe to my channel, that would be really cool for you guys. Please get me to 1,000, that would be awesome. Sicko. Alright, back to Lobster now.
So hope you enjoyed my take, and we'll see if Studio Cloverworks can do Sister Krone as well as the larger Promised Neverland series justice. Fingers crossed. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And remember, lobster isn't tennis, but don't you grab it. Special thank you to the Pixel Hipster who did most of the heavy editing on this video. Link to his channel in the description below. Give him a special thank you by giving him a sub.